DH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are 5 cards that I think should see more play in the Commander format. These are just some cards that everyone is sort of aware of, I'm sure. No big secrets here, but I think they should see more play, either because they fit in very specific themes or because they're just generally a great card. This list in particular is going to be all colorless. It just sort of happened that way. So this is an all colorless version of cards you can put in decks, and of course that means you can put them in any deck, but most of these are going to be very specific with where you're playing them. So let's start off with Obsidian Battle Axe, 3 mana tribal artifact warrior equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has haste. Whenever a warrior creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Obsidian Battle Axe to it and has equip 3. I really think that this card could and maybe should go in any deck where your commander is a warrior. It doesn't have to be warrior tribal, right? I've put this card in a few decks already. I put it in my underwhelming commander series for my Parage of Urborg deck because that was a warrior, and having this attached to your commander right away so it gets the +2/+1 bump and you can attack with it right away is great. I also threw this in the Hazazon deck that I just did on my channel from Dominaria United because that is a warrior. I did a little bit of a warrior tribal theme there, but just having your commander be a warrior means that this will slip right onto your Hazazon when you cast it, and immediately you can attack with it. So it's going to be a 5/4 with haste and possibly unblockable if your opponents control deserts, right? Because it has Desert Walk. So I think it's a great include there as well. There is, by my count, over 140 legendary warriors in the commander format, and this could go in pretty much all of them. So this card probably should be seeing more play. Coming in at number 4, Animal Sanctuary. It's a land and taps to add colorless. So again, of course, it can go in any deck. Pay 2 and tap, put a +1/+1 counter on target bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake. So of course, when you look at this card, you will immediately think, okay, well, it goes in the tribal theme of any of those different decks. Maybe a +1/+1 counter theme as well. Certainly that is the case. But again, just as your commander, right? What this series is mostly looking at is what is your actual commander and how easily can those cards fit in your deck because of what your commander is. So even just having a land in your deck that can, if you got mana open, throw a +1/+1 counter on your commander, hey, why not, right? Now, unfortunately, there is no ox or goat commanders out there. So sad, I know. There is, of course, a whole lot of cats. There's 35 cat commanders. You could throw this card in any of those decks. There's actually 22 bird commanders. That's a lot of bird commanders. I did not know there was that many. There is 13 snake commanders. Again, that's a lot more than I thought there was. So 13 snake commanders that you could throw this land in there just to chuck a +1/+1 counter on your commander if you want to. And there are also 6 dog commanders that you could throw this card in. That's a whole lot of decks that you could chuck this card in if you can find room. Again, it's just a land, right? So it's going to be very easy to slot it into your deck. And if at any point you want to throw a +1/+1 counter on your commander, why not? While we're talking about +1/+1 counters, coming in at number 3, Power Conduit. 2 mana artifact, tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control, choose one. Put a charge counter on target artifact or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. This card really can go in a lot of decks. Okay, so first of all, there are commanders out there where you actually want to be removing counters. There's also strategies out there that you want to be removing counters, right? When I did my Atraxas Sagas deck, Sagas are cards that you probably want to be removing counters from because when you do so, you will go back to the following chapter, right? Or you repeat the chapter that you want to repeat again. There are not a lot of cards in the commander format that are just removing any kind of counter from any kind of permanent. That's what makes this card so valuable. And I've mentioned it a ton of times on my channel already, and I've put it in a couple deck decks as well. But again, if we're just talking about the commanders, there are over 270 commanders in the format that are dealing with counters in one way or another. Okay, now if you just look at Power Conduit as a swapping effect where I have a commander that I'm posing +1/+1 counters on, or maybe I'm in a +1/+1 counter theme and I'm moving around all my other creatures, this is a way to move a +1/+1 counter, right? Because you're going to tap it to remove a +1/+1 counter from one creature you control and put it on another creature. So this is a great way to just swap those counters around, right? A lot of times you can have commanders like my Bralin, for example, that I don't really care that it's putting +1/+1 counters on itself. I sort of want to do the damage thing. That's what that deck is built around, is dealing damage to all my opponents. The +1/+1 counters is just sort of an added bonus. So now I can take the +1/+1 counters off of my Browlin because I don't really need them there, and I can put them on another creature where they might be more valuable. So this is a great way to move those counters around as well. This is a really handy, really versatile card, again, and it's colorless, so it can go in a ton of decks. Coming in at number 2, Hero's Blade. 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+2. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Hero's Blade to it, and has equipped 4. So again, this is a card that I've thrown in a couple of different commander decks. It fits particularly well in certain decks, right? If you have a commander that is maybe entering the battlefield a lot, you're picking it up, you're putting it back down, this automatically slips onto it. There are a few commanders where in particular this can be great if you have one of those commanders and also maybe want to be attacking with it. But this truly is one of those cards that you could put in pretty much any deck, because even if you don't want to attack with your commander, you just want it to sit there, you're using its static or triggered ability or whatever, just giving your commander the +3/+2 bump can be pretty good, right? Even if you don't want to attack with it, you're increasing your commander's toughness, so this can be a way to get it out of reach of maybe some damage spells as well. A lot of people probably don't think of it that way, but this is actually sort of a bit of a protection effect for your commander. I know it seems silly to talk about a card like this, but again, a lot of people don't think of the uses of this card. The use here is, I just want to attack with my commander so I can slip it on there and make it bigger. Probably goes in a lot of Voltron decks, sure, but it can be used in a lot of other ways as well. Coming in at number 1 though is a really interesting card, Assault Suit, and this is a card that I'm sure a lot of people have seen in the commander format. It gets used in very specific scenarios. So 4 mana artifact equipment, has equipped 3. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has haste, can't attack you or a planeswalker you control, and can't be sacrificed. And has, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until end of turn. If you do, untap it. So this has traditionally in the format been used on a creature that you want to give to your opponents that you want them to attack your other opponents with, right? Obviously it can't attack you. It's not goaded, so it doesn't have to attack, but you want to entice your opponents to attack each other with your commander. There are a couple of commanders where it does work really good there. Corona False God, of course, is one of the traditional ones where you are doing that anyway in your deck, right? Tangarth First Mate, another one where you're already doing that. My opponents gain control of my commander, so it fits really good there. But what might get overlooked on this card a little bit, which is really, really important, and you don't really see this effect anywhere else, is that creature can't be sacrificed. That's actually a really, really powerful ability that you can do a whole ton with. And I did a real deep dive here. I looked at a whole bunch of commanders where this card can fit really, really well, simply because it says that creature cannot be sacrificed, right? So first of all, if your commander has an upkeep, so if you look at some of the OG Elder Dragons, right, for which this format is named, they have an upkeep. At the beginning of your upkeep, pay whatever amount of mana, or you sacrifice them. If they are equipped with an Assault Suit, they can't be sacrificed. Whatever it says on the card is always going to trump the actual rules of the game. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if you don't want to pay that white, blue, and a black for your Chromium, you can just have an Assault Suit on it, and then you just forego paying the upkeep. It will say, okay, well, I guess we have to sacrifice this creature, but Assault Suit is not allowing that to happen. It's also nice to give your commander the +2/+2 and the haste, but now you don't have to pay the upkeep as well, right? Piru, the Volatile, the more recent version of this Elder Dragon series, again, has that upkeep that maybe you don't want to pay. There are other commanders like Chisei Heart of Oceans that have an upkeep or you have to sacrifice them, where with Assault Suit on it, now you don't have to worry about that. Chisato Whispering Hunter is a really interesting one. 3 and a green snake warrior 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a snake, okay? Doesn't say sacrifice this creature necessarily. You just have to sacrifice a snake, but of course, your Chisato is a snake, so if you don't have any other snakes lying around, it sacrifices to itself, has a really powerful ability. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player skips their next untap step. Wow, that's pretty good. So when you build this deck, of course, you got to have a whole bunch of snakes lying around so you can constantly be sacrificing them. With Assault Suit, you don't have to have any other creatures at all. You can just put your Assault Suit on your Chisato, and it is now a 4/4 with haste, which is pretty good. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you got to sacrifice a snake. Well, you can't sacrifice your Chisato because, of course, it can't be sacrificed. So that upkeep just doesn't happen. If you have no other snakes around, it doesn't actually do anything. So a really great fit there. Also a great fit in a Dorothea Vengeful Victim deck, because that is a commander that is sacrificing itself. And of course, maybe you want to sacrifice it so you can play the flip side, but if you want to play the front side, and I actually have a patron who built this deck that wants to be playing the front side with this because it is a 2-mana 4/4 flyer. That's pretty good. Whenever it attacks or blocks, though, you have to sacrifice it at the end of combat. But with an assault suit on it, that will not happen, of course, because it can't be sacrificed. How about Vrondis, Rage of Ancients? I did this one on my channel as well. This is not sacrificing itself, but whenever Vrondis, Rage of Ancients is dealt damage, you may create a 5/4 red and green dragon spirit creature token with, when this creature deals damage, sacrifice it. So now you're creating those dragon tokens that are going to get sacrificed. So Assault Suit is, I think, an auto include there, because now you can throw Assault Suit on one of your dragon tokens. It's now a 7/6, and when it deals damage, it will not be sacrificed, of course, because it can't. Probably the most interesting way to use this card, though, is with Kiki Jiki, Mirror Breaker, or any of those effects. This is an actual commander that has this effect, but of course, there's lots of other options for what this commander is doing. In fact, I just did Kadric on my channel as well, which is a commander that is doing a similar thing, that this will work if you want to be doing it. So, of course, you tap your Kiki Jiki to create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control. That token has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So now I can create that token copy of whatever creature I want, and if I want it to stick around and not get sacrificed at the next end step, I can put Assault Suit on it, right? Now on my end step, it's supposed to get sacrificed, but it will not because it can't. There is a lot of decks that are doing stuff like that, right? Those sneak attack type of decks. If you have something that says sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, if it has an Assault Suit on it, that is going to keep it from getting sacrificed. This card, again, you might not think of it used in that way, but to me, the part there that says it can't be sacrificed is the most powerful and most significant part of this card, and should be getting used a lot more for that reason. But that is all. That is 5 more cards that I think should see more play in the Commander format. And if you are thinking of purchasing any of these cards, I have a TCG Player link. It is in the description below. Feel free to give it a click. It helps support the channel. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.